and they talk to me.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of RKO. You didn't know? I'm Kayvon, along here with Russell. Say hey, Russell.
Hey, Russell.
We are very proud to announce that we've had over 200 listens and downloads for our first episode. We're very pleased with that, considering we've done very little promotion for our podcast, and we're just trying to get this off the ground. So thank you to everyone who listened to and downloaded our first episode. You can listen to our episode for free on iTunes or on Podomatic.com. In future episodes, we're going to be answering questions from listeners. If anyone is friends with either of us, either myself or Russell on Facebook, please send us any pro wrestling related questions or comments that we can address on future episodes of our podcast. If we get a lot of questions or comments that we want to talk about, we may set up a Twitter account or a Facebook group solely dedicated to the podcast, so we can have more interaction with our listeners. It's been 2 weeks since we've had our last podcast. We're going to start this episode. We're going to quickly run down the results of everything we've missed since our last episode, which was July 22nd. We recorded that episode prior to the main event that aired that evening, so we'll start with the results of the July 22nd main event from Orlando, Florida. We'll just run down the ring results, the match results. We'll talk about things that happened outside of the ring or storyline-wise after I run down the results here. So main event, July 22nd, 2014, Orlando, Florida. Seth Rollins defeated Fandango. Ryback defeated the WWE Tag Team Champion Jey Uso. Big E and Kofi Kingston defeated Heath Slater and Titus O'Neil. And Jack Swagger defeated Rusev via DQ. The planned main event for that night that Russell and I talked about on our last podcast was supposed to be Rusev versus Sheamus. That match was changed to Jack Swagger and Rusev, so we never got that match. We'll talk about that a little later on, and things regarding the United States Championship heading into SummerSlam. NXT, July 24th, 2014. If some of you aren't familiar with any NXT superstars or you don't watch the WWE Network, it's a really great show. Some of these names may not be familiar to you, but I really suggest checking it out whenever you get a chance. The Ascension, the NXT Tag Team Champions, defeated Aaron Solo and Johnny Vandal. Tyler Breeze defeated Mojo Rawley. The NXT Women's Championship match was pretty decent. Charlotte, the NXT Women's Champion and daughter of wrestling legend Ric Flair. Russell, can you give me a Ric Flair woo for our listeners?
Woo!
That's right. Charlotte, the NXT Women's Champion, defeated Summer Rae, retained her title. The Vaudevillains defeated Kalisto and Sin Cara, and Adrian Neville, the NXT Champion, defeated Rusev via disqualification. The July 25th, 2014 SmackDown from Orlando, Florida had Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, the WWE Tag Team Champions, defeating Curtis Axel and Ryback. Bo Dallas defeated Dolph Ziggler. We had a no DQ match, which I thought was really entertaining. Dean Ambrose defeated Cesaro. Paige defeated Naomi. Bray Wyatt defeated R-Truth. And the main event for that SmackDown, Roman Reigns defeated Alberto Del Rio. Next, we're moving on to the July 28th, 2014 Raw from Houston, Texas. This was last week's Raw, not the one last night. John Cena, the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, I have to say, cut just really one of his best promos at the beginning of this Raw, going back and forth with Paul Heyman, discussing their the title match at SummerSlam between John Cena and Brock Lesnar. Just cut a really great promo filled with emotion, which led to a match between John Cena versus Cesaro. John Cena defeated Cesaro. Next, we had Dolph Ziggler teaming with the WWE Tag Team Champions, the Usos, defeating Curtis Axel, the Miz Intercontinental Champion, and Ryback. R-Truth defeated Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas is no longer undefeated. I'm not sure of the exact number of victories he had before this loss. I think it was close to 20, and Bo could have been 17, 18. But R-Truth defeated Bo Dallas to end Bo Dallas's winning streak. Adam Rose defeated Damian Sandow, who was dressed as an astronaut. Diego defeated Fandango. Naomi and Natalya defeated Alicia Fox and Cameron. And in the main event, or rather the final match of the evening, Chris Jericho and Seth Rollins ended in a no contest because of the appearance of the Wyatts. That match never had a conclusion. Main event from last week, July 29th, 2014, from Corpus Christi, Texas. The Usos, WWE Tag Team Champions, defeated Curtis Axel and Ryback. Heath Slater and Titus O'Neil, also known as Slater Gator, defeated Tyson Kidd and Zack Ryder. And Dean Ambrose defeated Alberto Del Rio via disqualification. NXT from last week, July 31st, 2014. Tyler Breeze defeated Angelo Dawkins. Charlotte, the NXT Women's Champion, defeated Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch, my first time seeing Becky Lynch in a singles match, on commentary they made a comparison to Lita, which I can see. She's very energetic. Hopefully has a bright future ahead of her in WWE. The Ascension, NXT Tag Team Champions, defeated Mac Miles and Steve Cutler. Bull Dempsey and Mojo Rawley, a new tag team, in NXT, defeated the Mechanics. And in the main event, Adam Rose defeated Tyson Kidd. The relationship between Tyson Kidd and his wife Natalya on NXT continues to worsen as Tyson kind of blames her for making him lose a number of matches by being at ringside and not really supporting him. Interesting storyline. Interested to see where they go with that. But, of course, when Tyson appears on the main brand, like when he was on Main Event that same week, he was a good guy, a face, not a heel like he is on NXT. SmackDown from last Friday, August 1st, 2014, from Corpus Christi, Texas. Jack Swagger defeated Cesaro. R-Truth defeated Bo Dallas via DQ. Bo Dallas just flipping out on R-Truth, and, of course, getting his second loss. AJ Lee, WWE Divas Champion, defeated Rosa Mendez in one single move and made Rosa tap out. Kane and Seth Rollins defeated Dean Ambrose in a 1-on-2 handicap match. Dean Ambrose grabbing a chair, costing himself the match, but exacting some revenge on Kane and more importantly, Seth Rollins for Dean Ambrose. Diego defeated Fandango yet again. Alberto Del Rio defeated Dolph Ziggler, made him tap. And in the main event, Chris Jericho defeated Eric Rowan, and because Chris Jericho defeated Eric Rowan is banned from the Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho match. He's banned from ringside for that match at SummerSlam. Now let's move on to last night's Raw, August 4th, 2014, from Austin, Texas. The first match, believe it or not, was a last man standing match. Brutal match. Roman got a little bloody, ended up with some stitches. But Roman Reigns defeated Kane in that match. Mark Henry, in his home state of Texas, near his hometown, I think he's from Silsbee, Texas. They were in Austin, which I assume is really close to Austin, Silsbee is, defeated Damian Sandow, who was dressed as an Oklahoma Sooner, which the Texas crowd, as you can imagine, absolutely loathed, hated. Beat the Clock Challenge match. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins is set for SummerSlam. They had Dean Ambrose compete in a match and Seth Rollins compete in a match. And Beat the Clock Challenge is basically whoever wins their match in the quickest time would get to pick the stipulation for their match at SummerSlam. First up was Dean Ambrose's Beat the Clock Challenge match. He fought Alberto Del Rio. It took him quite a while. It took him 15 minutes and 42 seconds, but he did win the match. Dolph Ziggler defeated Cesaro, Goldust and Stardust, or as Russell likes to call him, Gold Star. Gold Star. Defeated Curtis Axel and Ryback. Jericho had another match next against Luke Harper. He already got rid of Eric Rowan from ringside at SummerSlam by defeating him on the last SmackDown. Now he's up against Luke Harper. If he defeated Harper, Harper's gone from ringside at SummerSlam, so it would just be Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho did win this match via disqualification because of Bray Wyatt's interference. So seemingly it will be just Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho now at SummerSlam without Eric Rowan and Luke Harper by Bray Wyatt's side. Diego defeated Fandango yet again, and Bo Dallas finally getting his revenge on R-Truth by picking up a win. Maybe he's back on another winning streak. And in the final match of the evening was the second Beat the Clock Challenge match, the one for Seth Rollins. He had to beat 15 minutes and 42 seconds. The original opponent for Seth Rollins, as named by the Authority, was Rob Van Dam. Mr. Monday Night, RVD, came to the ring. Justin Roberts, the ring announcer, said, "Wait a minute, RVD is not your opponent tonight. Heath Slater is." Of course, the Authority playing favorites, assuming that Seth Rollins could easily beat Heath Slater in under 15 minutes. That may have been the case. However, Dean Ambrose appeared ringside and started to destroy Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank briefcase. Opened the briefcase, took out his contract for a WWE World Heavyweight Championship match, ripped it up, threw pop in there, threw popcorn in there, and even threw JBL's cowboy hat in there. Of course, this led to a lot of distraction, and Heath Slater beat Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins. So Seth Rollins did not win his Beat the Clock Challenge match. And I believe on this upcoming SmackDown is when it was announced that Dean Ambrose will name his stipulation for his match against Seth Rollins at SummerSlam, a match that was supposed to take place at the last pay-per-view, Battleground, but did not because of the attack backstage. So, with those results in mind, the updated card as we stand right now, and keep in mind this is prior to today is August 5th, 2014. This is prior to the main event broadcast tonight, so something could happen tonight in regards to SummerSlam. The updated card as we see it right now for SummerSlam 27 on August 17th in Los Angeles, California, is the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match, Brock Lesnar versus WWE World Heavyweight Champion John Cena. The WWE Intercontinental Championship match, Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz, the WWE Intercontinental Champion. We have the WWE Divas Championship match, AJ Lee, the current champion, defending against Paige. A flag match, Jack Swagger versus Rusev. Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. Remember, no Eric Rowan or Luke Harper at ringside. Brie Bella versus Stephanie McMahon, which would be a really good match. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, and Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. That's a full card already. I'm not sure if we're going to see a United States Championship match. Sheamus has not been on TV for a number of weeks. I know I read that he had the flu pretty bad a few weeks ago, and I think that's why he's been off TV. He posted a picture on Twitter of him the other day, so I think he's doing better. He's still alive, which is good, and he's still United States champion. Flag match at SummerSlam, Jack Swagger versus Rusev. Russell, what do you think about that, and what does that mean for the United States Championship picture?
Well, I think if they go on with what they've been doing with the Rusev character, and they have him defeat Jack Swagger, that will definitely set up maybe a match between Rusev and Sheamus, which, as we talked before, I think would be their best bet to definitely put a lot of heel heat onto the Rusev character if you put that U.S. title around his waist. He has a great mouthpiece in Lana, no pun intended, and I also think that by him defeating Jack Swagger, the real American, it sets him up to be that ultimate Russian heel. Like we've seen, like I said, in the early 90s with that Sergeant Slaughter character. I also think that going forward, it makes for an easy storyline for those who face him, because they can always say that they're going after the United States title. That would be around his waist, and he could defeat all comers until WrestleMania, where hopefully they'll have a new uprising star, or perhaps a veteran on the roster that will take the U.S. title back. But I think a good U.S. title run for Rusev is in the cards if they play this right. And then, that lets Sheamus maybe take some time off, or, put him in matches maybe with the likes of a Brock Lesnar versus Sheamus. If Brock Lesnar does go on to defeat John Cena, that'd be a really good match, I believe. Two powerhouses. And let's not forget, that Sheamus is one of Triple H's favorite persons, workout buddies. So, that could set up bigger things for Sheamus in the long run, or even going after the Intercontinental title. But I think taking the strap off of Jack Swagger in this flag match, and going on to defeat Sheamus for the U.S. title would be the best thing for Rusev.
Do you think if Rusev beat Sheamus for the title, that Swagger would go after Rusev for the title? I mean, and I only ask that because, I don't know how willing they would be to put the U.S. title on Swagger. Obviously, when he came back at the beginning of 2013, he won the Elimination Chamber. He was going to WrestleMania to face Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship. But, of course, in the midst of this journey, he got busted. He got his DUI. And basically he's been, buried ever since, right? He can't travel out of the country because of that situation. So he can't do anything out of the U.S., which is fine storyline-wise. I mean, he could be, he's Mr. USA, so he could do everything in the U.S. Even Deb Coulter could say, we refuse to leave the country. We will only wrestle in this country, kind of add to their character. But, do you think they'd let Swagger take the title off of Rusev pending Rusev ever wins the championship? Would they have that faith in him to represent the company again in that sense?
I think, they may have the confidence in him to carry the title. The unfortunate thing is that, he can't go abroad, travel overseas. When you think back with the promo that was cut last night by Zeb Coulter, and they were showing the pictures of the average American, and they got to the military picture, and he said, this is what we represent. With Jack Swagger, if he ever did have the U.S. title put on him, he cannot travel abroad, and do the matches, for the troops, because they do travel to Afghanistan and to Iraq and so forth. I think what would be great, for a morale booster would be, to have, the Rusev character defeat Jack Swagger, and then call out Sheamus, for the match at the next pay-per-view. Defeat Sheamus, and then when they do go and do the troops, then having, these mid-card guys, maybe beat up on Rusev abroad, in front of the troops.
Well, the good news is the last few years they've done tribute to the troops. They do those overseas tours, like you mentioned, in Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever it may be. But their tribute to the troops special that airs around Christmas, the past couple years they've done in one Army bases in the U.S., like in North Carolina, Virginia, wherever. So that actually may play to his favor.
Right.
But, if he's not going to travel overseas and if he's not in the United States title picture, are you ever going to put any championship on him? And the thing about Sheamus being champion is if you're going to have a non-American or U.S. citizen, I'm just thinking, practically, if you're going to have a non-U.S. citizen hold that United States championship, he should be heel, right? Because Sheamus being a face, being a good guy, and holding the United States title doesn't really make sense, because you would want a non-U.S. guy holding that title so a U.S. guy could go after him and be the hero, right? So it really doesn't make sense at all to have Sheamus be the United States champion.
And that's why I was saying that if he does, let's say Rusev does get past Jack Swagger, he beats him, and then he, challenges, Sheamus. Therefore, you would have that heel character being the United States champion, and he would be, the Russian. And what greater storyline than to have, the roster going after, the United States champion, and trying to bring it back home to the United States, per se. And that would allow Sheamus to go on to bigger, better things. Because I think Sheamus, I think his character, what he's done for the business, and in the past, being champion, main eventing, he really is above the United States belt. I'm not taking anything away from the United States championship, but he is more of a main event person, So I would think that, I think right now he's just holding that title just to have it, being on someone's waist. It was kind of thrown together the way it happened with the Battle Royal, and they said, well, we got to put it on somebody, and let's put it on Sheamus, But I think if he is defeated by Rusev, then they go ahead and have Sheamus go on to bigger, better things. I would love to see a Brock Lesnar-Sheamus match, because I think those are two big powerhouses. They would match up pretty well, especially if Brock Lesnar beats John Cena, which I think he will at SummerSlam. I think you have to then, allow John Cena to come down a couple of rings and let Sheamus now challenge Brock Lesnar, and eventually, hopefully, they set it up for WrestleMania to have Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for the championship.
Well,
I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said the one thing about Roman Reigns that he has to work on is talking, and he has all the other attributes. He's got the in-ring skills. He has the size, and if you want him to get over, and let's face it, he does have the Rock's blood in him. If you want to get him over, you have him challenge Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. You have Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, and then Roman Reigns. And what would be great, and it would be out of the ballpark if they did it. But Brock Lesnar's that part-time wrestler, so his contract probably says, hey, I win the title and I main event WrestleMania, and then after that I don't know. So why not have Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania, and have Paul Heyman, of all people, flip and cost Brock Lesnar, the Beast Incarnate, the man that he brought up, turn on him and say Roman Reigns is now the man, and I'm representing him because he's a younger, stronger, more talented version of Brock Lesnar, and he's a full-time wrestler.
Well, I could see. I mean, it's exactly what Roman would need. I mean, it's not that I don't think Roman can't talk, but everything we've seen so far, it's like he's just a very low-volume talker, and it's just not. Look, that's why they put Heyman with Cesaro, right? He needed a talker. Obviously, Swagger needed a talker, and so why wouldn't you do it with Roman? I think that's genius. I haven't heard that theory before, but I think that would be a great thing to happen. I want to mention one thing too, going back to the United States title. You're right. Sheamus should be out of that mid-card title picture, considering all he's done. It was just like, when they had that feud back in 2005, I think, with like Triple H and Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the Intercontinental Champion, and they were fighting. Triple H said, it's not, this is personal, it's not for the Intercontinental title, but they had Intercontinental Championship matches. You're wasting, in my opinion, talent by not letting guys like Bo Dallas or someone like that you're trying to bring up, Fandango, by not having them battle for a championship, because these guys on the level of Sheamus, they don't need it. They don't need to be there. If they're not fighting for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, give someone else those mid-card titles. I mean, obviously we talked about debating whether or not they should even have those titles or both of them. Anyways, but, Sheamus doesn't need to be there doing it. I think if Brock Lesnar keeps the title, there's no doubt in my mind he's going to beat Cena at SummerSlam. But if he keeps that title between SummerSlam and WrestleMania, he's going to need opponents that aren't Cena, right? Cena and him would probably have a rematch at Night of Champions, and maybe all the way up to Hell in a Cell, having a Hell in a Cell match. I could see that happening, but that still leaves you with Survivor Series, TLC, the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber. So that's when, like you said, guys like Sheamus could be in the picture, and I expect to see at some point Randy Orton, like we talked about on the last podcast, breaking away from the Authority, going face, and, hey, I never got my rematch from WrestleMania after Daniel Bryan won the title. I want Brock Lesnar. I want my titles back.
Right.
So after Brock is finished with Cena, I could definitely see him and Orton next, and I could definitely see Sheamus somewhere in that mix, whether it even be like in the Elimination Chamber mix come February before WrestleMania. But definitely Roman and Brock ending up at WrestleMania, there's no doubt. I want to talk about
the Elimination
yeah.
Chamber. If you did play it that way and you had the Elimination Chamber match and you did have Brock Lesnar in that match, you could also bring those guys in like a Cesaro, like Roman Reigns, Randy Orton. Don't know what's going on with Kane. He gave the mask back again last night.
That's right, yeah.
Does that mean is he back to corporate Kane? Is he taking time off? What's up with that? But, if you had a Randy Orton, Sheamus, Roman Reigns, Cesaro, in that Elimination Chamber match, given the time, they could see who gels better with Brock Lesnar to set up that WrestleMania match. What gets the better crowd reaction when those two competitors are in that ring, or even that matter, three competitors are in the ring. Who's to say they can't have a triple threat match or even a fatal four-way at WrestleMania? It doesn't always have to be the singles match.
Mm-hmm. So,
that does allow these guys who haven't proven themselves on the main event roster, in the Elimination Chamber to come out and get their 5 or 10 minutes with Brock Lesnar or with John Cena. I mean, that would be a heck of a Elimination Chamber match, with the likes of a John Cena, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Cesaro, Sheamus. That way, you can have those certain guys, going against Brock Lesnar at these pay-per-views, and him having a different opponent and making it seem like it is fresh, so that when he does finally have that WrestleMania match, and I think that's probably why they brought him in, to have that WrestleMania match, he can go on and say, I've defeated all these guys, except don't put him on one-on-one yet with Roman Reigns until WrestleMania.
Oh, yeah.
And that way, it makes Roman Reigns look even stronger because he has defeated Sheamus, Randy Orton, John Cena again. Maybe even throw Cesaro in there, in the mix.
Well, and I think you just said it right there. Something else I wanted to mention. I think if it doesn't happen before WrestleMania, assuming we get Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the title at WrestleMania, Roman goes over, Brock maybe gets his rematch at Extreme Rules, or maybe waits till SummerSlam. I think Roman's opponent, if they don't enter a feud before WrestleMania, non-title, I think for the title after WrestleMania with Roman being champion, you gotta do Roman versus Cena at some point, right? They tease it, they tease it, they tease it, they tease it. You gotta do it. And I think that'll be a passing of the torch situation, because we both said it. Who's that guy who's going to be carrying that company in Cena's vein for 10 years or whatever going forward? It seems to be Roman, right?
It does. I mean, it makes sense for Roman Reigns to carry the torch, And I think if you do have the buildup of Cena versus Roman Reigns eventually, Cena either has got to go heel, or you're going to have Roman Reigns go heel. And that's why I said, and like I said, I've talked to another one of my friends, and they said the perfect opportunity would have Brock Lesnar just destroy the roster and get to WrestleMania and say, once I win at WrestleMania, I can retire or leave as champion and defeated everyone on the roster here, and I can go on to something else. And have Paul Heyman flip and turn on Brock Lesnar. Now you set up Roman Reigns as the heel character with Paul Heyman in his ear, and then that would be the perfect opportunity for Super Cena to say, I want the shot now, and then let Roman Reigns still go over on Cena, and Cena still, is the face of the company. He still gets the cheers. It may even get to, it may even turn the crowd in favor of Roman Reigns. Kind of like the old Steve Austin. They start rooting for the bad guy. They want to see the, the reverse psychology of that. Let's get something straight. Paul Heyman is one of the greatest masterminds in wrestling history. If you'd have had Paul Heyman with Ted Turner's money, you might be saying ECW instead of WWE. Because the way he could run the business. Now you hear good things and bad things, but he always put out a great product. He was above his time. Speaking of that, and not promoting the new DVD that'll be on Blu-ray today, but the I Am Paul Heyman DVD that came out today, they were promoting that on WWE last night. And let's not forget, for all you listeners out there, if you want the WWE network, it's only how much?
$9.99.
$9.99. Yeah,
that's right.
Put down our throats a lot last night. But they are doing that because they are going to be going global, and so that says something. That it took off more than what I think they thought it would be. They still have a little bit of glitch here and there, but the product is what everybody's demanding. But I think they definitely have to slowly build up the Roman Reigns character and make Brock Lesnar continue to be strong. I want to see at SummerSlam, I want to see him demolish John Cena. And I know there's a lot of John Cena fans out there. I'm a John Cena fan by heart. He is definitely another Hulk Hogan when it comes to children and selling merchandise and so forth. But you didn't bring Brock Lesnar in for nothing. You got to have him come in, destroy John Cena, and make him be, the beast that he is, build him up, destroy everybody on the roster, and slowly continue to build up Roman Reigns so they can have that WrestleMania match. So, it does make that 21-1 even more devastating when they do fight, at WrestleMania, which I think that's what they may do. Another thing I noticed on Raw last night and was the Stephanie McMahon, Brie Bella contract signing, the intensity that I felt they had in the ring last night. You usually have the signing of the two big superstars coming out. I think of Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair signing, or the Triple H, Shawn Michaels. The Undertaker when he would challenge all the opponents, and they'd have the contract signing. I was watching the contract signing last night with Stephanie and Brie Bella, and it was awesome. You know, you didn't have to have Triple H on the mic promoting it. They promoted themselves. And the slap and the knockdown of Nikki at the end, and Triple H pushing the table and cornering Brie Bella just made it. Of course, Stephanie McMahon not only doing one pedigree, but two perfectly executed pedigrees. She's learned a lot from her husband, or maybe even vice versa, when it comes to that move. But, you know, I think the intensity, especially even at the end, the kiss of Stephanie with Triple H saying, you know, I'm the number one bitch around here. So,
and not to mention, that had a real Attitude Era feel to it, that segment last night.
It made a statement. It made a statement, and in the underlining line of everything, it still keeps Daniel Bryan in the minds of the fans.
Yeah.
By continuing this feud. You know, I think they're hoping that Daniel Bryan comes back and can be the wrestler that he was before he was injured. And by having this little feud, you know, it keeps the fans chanting the yes. He still is getting the yes chants out there. But I do not think that Stephanie McMahon, nor Triple H, nor Vince McMahon would allow for Stephanie and Brie to have this match if it was going to be an awful match. I just don't see it happen. I actually think that this match that they're going to have will actually get more time than probably some of the mid-card matches just to develop. I'm hoping, and I've told you this before, I'm hoping that it can be an epic match like the very first Stone Cold Vince McMahon match. You know, I could see Stephanie getting pummeled on and given the big middle finger like her dad did many, many years ago to Stone Cold, and, you know, calling Brie Bella back on her. You know, I mean, that would just be epic if this match can develop into something, and maybe, you know, it could eventually lead to Stephanie coming back in and wrestling. Or, you know, if she wins, and Stephanie says, well, I win, and I am the number one diva around here, I'm going to go for the championship again. You know, it's not unheard of. She did it before.
Well, I think something to think about, too, when it comes to Brie versus Stephanie is, and Stephanie is just, first of all, off the charts amazing on TV, and Brie is really, really impressive, I think. I think her acting is really, really improved since the beginning of the year when she was involved with Daniel Bryan versus the Authority stuff. JR said something on his podcast. You know, he's just one of those guys I look to who I think is like just one of those wrestling minds that one of my go-to guys that I listen to, along with, you know, Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman, like we talked about. JR said that this match, Brie versus Stephanie, can't try and be a technical wrestling match or a regular match. It might not be no DQ or no holds barred or anything like that, but this has to be two women in a cat fight just going at it, because you don't want to bore people to death with wrestling holds in this match. These two are ready to explode on each other, and it's got to be a hair-pulling girl slapping girl slobber knocker. It's got to be that. Because that's, you talk about Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon. There was nothing technical going on there. It was brawl. I mean, they were going at each other, and that's what this needs to be.
And I think going back to what you were saying with Brie Bella's acting, you know, we know it's set in stone. We know they know the winner ahead of time, you know. But I honestly think that there is animosity there with Brie Bella, especially when it comes to Daniel Bryan, you know. And I think you really seen that intensity when they were both talking to one another. It felt like there was things being said that might have been true. that they do have a not liking of one another. I mean, think about it. Stephanie, she's with Triple H. She's basically baby girl of the company. And
the $1 billion princess.
Right, the $1 billion princess. And she's looking across the ring at, Brie and her sister Nikki Bella, who, let's face it, have become big reality stars. They're two beautiful women. They're very talented. And there might be a little bit of animosity there that, she's with Daniel Bryan. Her sister's with John Cena, the man of the company. There may be a little bit of jealousy, on both sides. And, there might be a little bit of legitimacy when it comes to them going at it in the ring. So I do think it would be a great cat fight, the hair pulling and the slapping of the face. The promo when Stephanie took Nikki off of TV, that slap that Brie did, Stephanie, it had some power on it, It
had some stank on it. My goodness.
It did. If she would have had a ring on her finger and hit Stephanie with that,
you'd still see that mark on her face.
It would have cut her. And and even them having the little tiff they did at the a couple Raws ago, and where they had in Miami where the cops come out, and that was very intense. I mean, if you rewind that and watch it again, the kids in the front row didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They were scared. That's how intense it was. So they got their money's worth, and I think that's probably one of the matches at SummerSlam, to be honest, that I'm looking forward to. I think that it may steal the show. If they do it right, because it could lead, perhaps to a mixed tag match at WrestleMania with Triple H, Stephanie McMahon versus Brie Bella and Daniel Bryan.
Well, let's hope that Bryan's in condition again, or that good enough condition where he could wrestle in time for WrestleMania or ever wrestle again. Let's hope that that does happen. It's funny. I mean, that match with Brock and Cena, I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, no Brock Lesnar match. His match with Undertaker at WrestleMania was it was just weird. Because Undertaker was out of it, whatnot. But other than that, any other match I've seen with Brock Lesnar since he's come back, I've been generally pleased with him. So I am looking forward to that. But Brie versus Stephanie, they've closed the last two Raws, and oddly enough, I know it won't be, but I could see Brie versus Stephanie being the main event at SummerSlam. It's even as funny as that sounds. That could close the show, and I don't think a lot of people would complain. Listeners, we don't want to make this podcast too long. We know our first episode was long, and that was because it was our first episode. We had a lot to talk about, and I know we could talk about WWE in the last few weeks in SummerSlam for days here. I'll tell you what, to wrap up this podcast, Russell, let's run down the SummerSlam card again and each give our quick predictions on the winners of those matches and some thoughts. Let's go Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. Go ahead, Russell.
I believe Roman Reigns will continue on his winning streak, and he will beat the Viper, Randy Orton.
I agree. I also foresee that Randy Orton turn to a good guy, to a face in the coming months. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins.
I think that Dean Ambrose will win, and I think that his stipulation, or I hope that his stipulation is, it's for the Money in the Bank contract.
Yes, that is very likely, I think, and of course we'll find out the answer to that on SmackDown. I do see Dean winning the match. I think regardless of the stipulation, he is definitely, I think, on fire right now. Okay, Brie Bella versus Stephanie. Pick your winner for that match.
I'm going with the $1 billion princess.
And you say that. What makes you say that?
Well, I think that this is going to probably be a one and done. If Stephanie McMahon wins, it definitely adds flame to the fire. Nikki can then, have maybe her sister challenge Stephanie, if that's what they can, want to continue with the feud here. It's always better to have the heel being chased, getting over, until they finally, the good person or the good guy finally wins in the end. If they're going to continue this rival, if they're going to continue with this storyline and keep Daniel Bryan in our minds, Stephanie McMahon has to win this match so that Brie continues to be on television. If Brie wins, okay, she wins, now what? Stephanie wins, let's say that Stephanie wins because of interference. Or Stephanie wins because, guess what? In the back of her mind, she's always been jealous of Brie because Brie got married, because Brie one-upped her. So let's say Nikki Bella costs her sister the match. And now we finally have the Bella twins going at it. That makes for interesting television, especially if you eventually are going to turn John Cena heel, or if you don't, adding Nikki Bella to the Authority. What a dagger in the side to her sister on that. So they have more storyline to go with if they allow Stephanie McMahon to win.
Well, if Nikki were to go heel and Cena somehow, some way would turn heel one day, you could have Cena and Nikki versus Bryan and Brie. That's another option. However, I'm picking Brie for the winner just because, I love Stephanie McMahon. I'm picking Brie because, like I think you said, this is a one-time match with these two, and to me that's a blow-off. Meaning when there's a blow-off or a payoff or a one-time match, I say 9 times out of 10 your face goes over, and I think that's Brie. Okay, Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. I want to go ahead and say that I think I read that Chris Jericho is done after Night of Champions, which is the next pay-per-view in September. So I think they'll have a third match, this one at SummerSlam being their second. To me, and I know some people think it doesn't matter, I think Bray's lost too much recently. I think he's lost way too much recently. I mean, I just say I think he's got to win. I think he's got to win the next 2 matches if they have 2 more. What do you think?
Yeah, it has to be tit for tat. I mean, Bray Wyatt to continue to his character development, he has to get over on Jericho. If he doesn't, it's kind of killed his character. I mean, every time they've built him up, where he started getting, the backing of the fans or his character was going over, he lost steam. Whether it was against Kane, whether against, Daniel Bryan,
Cena,
John Cena,
yeah.
And I think that's a character, that was come up with by Dusty Rhodes. So I think that, he has the mind frame of that character being over if they just allow it. Now, that's again the WWE with that fine line, because he kind of comes out and, got the whole world in your hands kind of thing, So they've got to watch that. But I think, you bring Jericho back, he's a great opponent. Jericho, the professional he is, I mean, he put Fandango over at WrestleMania. He's going to put Bray Wyatt over and then walk away again. So I think Bray Wyatt comes out with a win.
Well, and let's hope Bray Wyatt has a better fate than Fandango's career. I mean, it's like we talked about with when I asked you, why did Brock Lesnar beat John Cena at Extreme Rules 2012? You said, well, at the time, Brock Lesnar wasn't a surefire contract, meaning he was there on a short-term basis, which he is. He's not there all the time. He wrestles 1-2 matches a year. See ya. He doesn't want to work a full-time schedule. Jericho had said recently that he's never going to be back in WWE full time. To think about his stints in WWE as like tours, like a band would do. Obviously, he's part of a band, Fozzy. He splits his time between his band touring and a quote WWE tour. You're building. Now, I'm not under the impression that just because you're there part time, you should always lose. Because if you're always losing, people get used to you losing. It's like, well, I mean, what's the point of you even, I don't know, being there? So, I mean, there's a point because people want to see you, but Bray's the future. Bray's going to be there full time. Bray needs to go over. I mean, overall in this feud, and in my opinion, needs to start winning a lot more. Flag match, Swagger versus Rusev. You picked Rusev, correct?
Yeah, we covered this earlier. Yeah, I think that Rusev has got to win this match. I do not want to see another count out or a disqualification. I want him to win in order to get that heel character over, and then continue on to bigger, better things, with the U.S. title.
I agree. Rusev should keep. There's too many people, I think, that start with undefeated streaks. And I'm not really talking about Bo Dallas. I'm talking about beast, big guys that come in with undefeated streaks. I think when they killed Ryback's undefeated streak, it was just didn't make sense to me. And you know what? Let's keep Rusev undefeated at least until WrestleMania, where someone can get a big win over him at WrestleMania, maybe for the U.S. title. Maybe it's Swagger. Maybe it's another mid-card guy who could really use a win. But something along the lines of that. Divas title, does AJ retain over Paige, or does Paige get her title back at SummerSlam?
I'm kind of intrigued with this match because, when Paige came in the night after, was it the night after WrestleMania, I believe?
Correct.
And when she came into the ring and was with AJ, you could just kind of see that she was not up to AJ's level. She was kind of futtering with her words and so forth, and she just didn't, feel like she was at that level at that time. She was saying, I'm not ready. But her character has really developed from her interview last night. I think she's definitely ready to take the reins and become champion again. Hopefully, they bring up Charlotte from NXT because
yes,
that would be, the Diva division would start becoming like it was when it was Lita, Trish Stratus, Mickie James, And I think that Paige character with her interview last night, being the demonic, miss you AJ, kind of thing, could be really good. So I'm hoping that AJ does lose and that Paige wins her second Diva title.
Well, and not to mention, if Brie were to beat Stephanie, or if Nikki goes on to challenge for a Divas title, most likely she'll go up against the heel, Paige, who's a heel right now. So logic says I expect to see Paige WWE Divas champion again. Obviously, if not at SummerSlam, maybe at Night of Champions. Love AJ, but I don't know if they're ready for another year-long reign as Divas champion for AJ. Russell, is Ziggler's time approaching? Are they going to put a strap back on him? Is he going to beat The Miz, or is The Miz really going to beat Dolph Ziggler in a match, in a result, rather, that I think could disappoint a lot of fans out there who really want to see Ziggler beat the system?
I think Ziggler's time is coming. It might not be at SummerSlam, but I think it's coming, especially with Wade Barrett being on the shelf. Perhaps, he does get his title shot later on down the line and win, but I think at SummerSlam he's going to fall short. Like I said, you don't bring guys back and put a title around them just to let them lose it the next month. The Miz he does have a lot of more going on outside of wrestling now, that he's been in movies and so forth. His demand is higher when it comes to mainstream. And, he is promoting movies that WWE, have money into. So it makes more sense for them to keep the title on The Miz. And going back, it's always better to have that title, on the heel character, and having, the good guy chase it and chase it and chase it and finally win. It's been proven with Daniel Bryan. He finally gets the win. And I think if Ziggler just continues to work hard, keeps the backstage stuff to a minimum, he is the second coming of Shawn Michaels when it comes to talent. The super kick last night that he almost, delivered to The Miz, that was epic Shawn Michaels. He could be that great. He sells the moves. When he takes the clothesline, he goes flying across the ring. So he sells the moves, sometimes to the point where it looks like he's going to hurt himself. But if he took that talent and they gave him the shot later on down the line, maybe in the next couple pay-per-views, I would like to see him continue to battle with The Miz, or with Sheamus. Because Ziggler is the type of guy, heel or face. They've always had to feel like they had to put somebody with him, whether it was AJ or, Vicky Guerrero or Biggie Langston. They always had to feel like they had to put somebody around him to have that title. And I think he has to prove that I can do it by myself, and I have to break away from the factions and do that. He gets one of the biggest pops every night, and he delivers in the ring. I don't understand. I don't know if it's backstage antics or a big mouth that's keeping him down or what, but he has the talent. I just don't think he's going to do it this pay-per-view. You don't bring The Miz back for a one-and-done shot. You bring The Miz in. Now, The Miz probably will be leaving in a couple months to promote the other movie, but I think for right now, you're going to have The Miz continue to be champion.
I disagree. I understand your point. However, I disagree. I'm going to say Ziggler wins because I think they're ready to put Ziggler over again. I think they're more interested in doing that than they are getting Miz over. I think there's no way in the world Ziggler's going to be in the WWE World Heavyweight title picture anytime soon. So I think the best they can do is Intercontinental title. I think it is backstage politics. I think he said a few things in interviews that tick some people off, but that has been over a year now, as far as I know, and I think it's Ziggler's time. I really do. I totally agree about the Shawn Michaels comparison, and I think it's Ziggler's time. So I'm going to pick Ziggler. Finally, I think we both agree, Brock, your new WWE World Heavyweight Champion at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I believe that Brock Lesnar walks out. Now, the only thing other than choosing Brock Lesnar is he going to make Cena tap, or is he going to pin Cena? How is it going to go over? I don't want to see him win because of Paul Heyman. I want to see him cleanly win, just like he did The Undertaker. Because if he doesn't, it's going to take away from the legacy of The Undertaker, giving him that rub. If Cena, loses for some freak, Paul Heyman interference or something. Brock Lesnar not only has to defeat Cena, he has to destroy him. He has to put him down, just like his interview. He's there because he likes to hurt people, and that's what I hope he does. Not literally, but I hope that's what comes over, that he is, the beast and goes over.
I agree. Yeah, I think if he beats Undertaker clean, he's beaten Cena clean. I don't think it's going to be a repeat of Extreme Rules 2012 where Cena gets dominated the entire match and then does an attitude adjustment on the steel steps in the ring and gets the win. I didn't understand it then. I would even less understand it now if that happened. You don't have Lesnar go over Undertaker and then have him lose to Cena. Lesnar is going over at SummerSlam, in my opinion, and Russell's too. Russell, let's end this podcast. This was our second episode. Like I said, we were so pleased to see that we had over 200 plays and downloads for our first episode that we recorded 2 weeks ago. Keep in mind, we are doing these every 2 weeks. The next time we have a podcast, episode 3 will be released on Tuesday, August 19th, 2 weeks from today. Again, in the future, we are really going to open our question, comment section so we can address those during a segment on this podcast. Like I said, if you're friends with either one of us on Facebook, inbox us a question, a comment that we can address. And if the response is well, we might think about opening up a Facebook page, a group, a Twitter account, where the questions can just come flooding in. We really appreciate everyone's support. Russell, anything you would like to add to close this podcast?
Final words. 3 of them. 1, Sting, SummerSlam.
Yeah.
They advertised that. That's a big thing. That may lead to Sting finally signing some type of contract with WWE, maybe making an appearance at WrestleMania, if not wrestling. Second thing, they were promoting last night for those viewers to watch the Brock Lesnar John Cena match at Extreme Rules to relive that moment. I say if you want to see a really good match, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, I believe it might have been 2002, and you have to correct me on that. It's the first time that Brock Lesnar and the Undertaker went at it. That match was probably better than their WrestleMania, and Brock Lesnar won that one.
Now, they had a Hell in a Cell match that same year, correct?
Yeah, they did. But I believe that was the first time that Brock Lesnar, I think that's when he was champion, or he had won the championship. But that match, if I can remember, it had to be, I want to say in September of 2002.
It might have been Unforgiven, I think, because they had one match, maybe a straight match, and then they had their Hell in a Cell match.
It was a really good one. Young Brock Lesnar, Undertaker was in his prime.
Biker Undertaker, right?
It was Biker Undertaker. Yes, it sure was.
Yeah.
And it was a really good match. And I just think you've seen the passion of that young Brock Lesnar because of going over on the Undertaker at the time. And the third thing and the most important thing, remember, WWE Network, it only costs
$9.99.
All right, folks, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you for Russell. This is Kayvon. We'll see you on iTunes, on Podomatic.com. We'll be back August 19th with episode 3 of RKO You Didn't Know. Until then, be well, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.